Alright, another Hythloday video. I shouldn't even, well, shouldn't dignify it with a response, but if I don't, then people will say I'm somehow bothered or find this a challenge, and no, there's no challenge here. It's a piece of, it's a shit man. He's eating his own shit man. Yeah, that's what I'll title the video. This has nothing to do with my theory, and he just keeps pretending that his false description of what I'm saying is somehow being honest or decent or any of that shit. I mean, the guy used to be an amateur boxer, and let's just bet that he was squirting lead into his gloves all the time. He could only win by cheating. This guy can't play a fair game ever. Ever. So, I mean, how many times have I said forces do not interact with forces? I mean, I have said that so many times, haven't I? And I said there's only one exception, and that's that stupid photon shit bending in gravity. And I've said that's a stupid exception. And now I've kind of proven how stupid that exception is by explaining how these dumb fucking physicists couldn't figure out they had the wrong lens. It's inverted. But anyway. I mean, fuck this shit. I mean, you people are so out of line. This argumentation is so foul. I've seen better arguments made by truthers. I mean, you're so far out of bounds, this bullshit. Okay, so we'll play it, but I'm just saying, you know, he draws this stupid box and says, these are Gary's rules. So he's applying this to gas molecules. All right, now he doesn't talk anything about the pressure of this container at all. But I mean, gas molecules. We're back to Feynman discounting Lesage gravity by talking about raindrops. I mean, somebody describes something as ultra-mundane. Are raindrops ultra-mundane? Do raindrops go through things? The guy's theory was basically that there's these tiny, tiny particles and they go through the earth, but only a few of them ever hit anything. So most of them go straight through and blah, blah, blah. I won't go through the whole thing. But yeah, it does have a kinetic, it does have a thermodynamic problem. The original Lesage gravity had a thermodynamic problem because it didn't do the kinetic thing. And the kinetic thing fixes it. Alright, well anyway. Okay, so the real problem with what Hythloday is trying to do here is I've presented a theory of evolution, and he says he wants abiogenesis. He wants me to tell him how electrons were created. He wants to know where the DNA molecule come from. And I'm saying, no, I'm just explaining what we have here now. I'm explaining why the animals exist the way they are now. All right, and how they interact now. And how they grew into those conditions. That's what I'm describing. And I'm presenting a reasonable explanation for what exists. I'm not giving you the creation story. Now, I could do that, but I just don't think it's the important story. And I could do it so easily by just taking your little example and squishing this box together and say, increase the pressure a lot. And then apply the rule. Now the things interact. Now the little quanta do interact. And when the green one hits the blue one, it does the right turn. So all of a sudden all the green ones are getting segregated to the sides, and all the blue ones are bouncing off of each other, and the polarization is beginning to segregate. And now the blue ones are compressing into electrons, and the green ones being pushed out to the side are being segregated into protons. They're being compressed and essentially glued to each other. And now they can interact with free energy. When you re-expand the box, now the blobs of green can interact with the free field energy. These aren't complex rules. Was that complex? Was that, whatever it was, 87 seconds worth of explanation, was that complicated? No, it wasn't. So there's your origin. Okay, that's how the electrons and protons were created. Now, can we get to the real subject, was the unification of force in the existing world that has protons, electrons, and neutrons in it, and nobody really worries about how they get born. What a cunt. So anyway, first rule he violates. as I have repeatedly stated, the field energy, the loose quanta, never hit each other. So his diagram is already wrong in the sense that the randomness is much more, well, first it'd be better if he drew it as maybe a circle that's the container. And the pressure is 1 zillion pounds per square inch. Okay, the pressure inside the universe container is incredible. Think nuclear bomb, the opposite of a nuclear bomb. Okay, the pressure from a nuclear bomb is basically an example of what happens when you release the pressure. So the pressure is intense inside this box. Alright, and what's happening, so the beginning of the thing is, it's just stuff bouncing back and forth, let's just say, lines of arrows. And these aren't lengths, these are just directions. So the stuff is basically just going every direction possible in straight lines. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so let's say the Big Bang thing happens, the compression happens, and so now inside of that field you have these compressed balls. Okay, and again, the pressure on this outside is 1 trillion pounds per square inch. That means the reflective pressure is 1 trillion pounds per square inch on every one of these balls. They're feeling 1 trillion pounds of arrows hitting them per square inch. That's the world they're in. And the world they're in is none of the arrows ever hit each other, the free ones. They only interact with the balls. And as stated, to make this even more complex, I mean, not that it's very complex, but it's complex for Hythloday, it's too complicated. They're different. Their polarization is different. So they filter the field energy differently. This one pushes polarization one way, this one pushes polarization the opposite way. So they're doing exactly the opposite thing to the opposite polarization. Now, that has absolutely, entirely, and nothing to do with gas in a container. This isn't a thermodynamic gas in a container subject. Little more complicated, idiot. It's not even more complicated. It's just different, you stupid cunt. And I've explained the differences over and over and over. And you just keep ignoring them, creating your Shitman, and then you eat your Shitman. You're just such a fucking cheater.
That it is a statistical effect giving rise, on average, to this net force.
Well, we missed the best part, really, where he says this is obvious to anyone, and then he talks about statistics, which was quite funny, I thought.
It ought to be self-evident.
Okay, so he's saying there's something self-evident about the complexity of physics on the subject of thermodynamics. Yeah, it's all self-evident. Okay.
That it is a statistical effect.
Okay, so the statistical fact should be self-evident, which means is you should know the statistical fact without even having to read it. You don't even have to see the evidence. The statistical fact is self-evident. Brilliant.
Giving rise, on average, to this net force. And it also presumes, similar to the second law of thermodynamics, which insists that entropy always increases if it...
Right, so again, he's arguing that my system has to be that system. And that it has to be the rules of gas molecules bouncing around in a thermally quiet box.
It is to change because it can reach equilibrium.
So my point would be, is it's already equilibrium. The field is equilibrium. The field can't interact with each other. The field is dead to each other. The field is just the same pressure all the time, the same thing. It always wants to do the same. And the only thing that's fucking it up are those electrons and protons, which keep bending the polarization into segregated clumps, streams.
That it's self-evident and readily...
Again, so it's self-evident and readily something that this isn't possible. It's not possible that you could have electrons and protons. Their existence is impossible. They couldn't possibly exist. Sticky bits of force couldn't possibly exist. Hythloday declares it so.
Really apparent that there is no statistical likelihood of a conglomerate of particles suddenly...
Well, again, so he says suddenly. Now, nowhere in my theory have I speculated at all about creating electrons or creating protons. I haven't said one single sentence on the subject of their creation in my theory. Now, as a response to his last video, I did mention, well, here, what if you smashed a polarization together and it turned into an electron? So, I mean, I can speculate on the subject, but I don't think it's important to unifying the forces of physics. That's what I'm doing. I'm unifying them. I'm really not on the subject of what's the origin of electrons, protons, and neutrons. That's not the subject of my theory.
Coming together, are all the particles suddenly piling
Again,
up?
so he says suddenly, like my theory somewhere says, it just suddenly happened that electrons poofed out of the field energy. They just poofed. No rules, no change in circumstances. As I've stated, if you further compress them, I can imagine if they're compressed tight enough, they'll start segregating. And that's where the electrons and protons were created, like in the Big Bang, for example. Some event previous to the current universe created electrons and protons. And there's every bit of evidence that electrons and protons do not pop in and out of existence. They're stable things. They stay inside of atoms for centuries and millennia and maybe even billions or trillions of years. There's just no evidence of the fact that electrons and protons decay in some way, or that they're spontaneously created. Nowhere in my theory did I speculate on their spontaneous creation. This is such a piece of straw man bullshit. You're arguing a theory no one's presenting. This is not my theory. This is not what I have argued exists. You're just a liar, a despicable fucking liar.
In one corner. This, however, is only a statistical, it's not impossible, but it's a statistical...
And again, where? Show me the video where I speculated on the clumping of electrons out of the field. Where did I ever suggest how electrons were created out of the field energy? Where? Where? I mean, can't any of you people be honest? Can't you call these people on this dishonesty? This grotesque dishonesty? I never speculated on any kind of spontaneous creation of fucking electrons and protons. There would have to be a process, and the process is going to be dynamic, no doubt.
Likelihood of this phenomenon. A very unlikely phenomenon. So
Yes, but what if, once they're collected in high pressure, so this is where his argument's going to fail. So he thinks this is statistically obvious. Well, I don't think he has the statistics. I don't think he can defend even his lie. So he's going to lie about my theory right now. And on top of that lie, he's not going to present any evidence saying, I know that's the way it works under high pressure. That if I put a fluid under a high pressure that has no adhesion, that it wouldn't stay together. So if I took some like lead and I put it in, well no, lead's not, it's a little too cohesive maybe. It's not very, it doesn't really stick together if you take the pressure away, but that it would just fly apart if I'm constantly bombarding it with pressure.
Unlikely that we get to say.
And pressure doesn't mean invisible pressure. It means quanta. It means little bits of shit hitting it and bouncing off of it.
And often view the second law of thermodynamics, that entropy always increases.
Yeah, again, this is the end of the universe kind of argument. What does this have to do with the fact that right now it's quite obvious that the universe is quite full of shit? What does it have to do with now? It has nothing to do with now, idiot. Your argument is a way of debunking the existence of the universe now? I'm sorry, the universe exists now, shithead, so obviously this entropy thing isn't exactly happening very quickly.
As a rock-solid law, when in actual fact it's just a statistical statement of probability.
Yeah, then why don't you just shut the fuck up? Because we're obviously right in the middle of that probability, and we ain't even anywhere close to the end of it. So why are we even bothering with this crap? What does it have to do with the universe that exists, shithead? Oh, that's right, absolutely nothing. Your stupid argument applies to current physics. Why don't you ask them? Well, why hasn't entropy already destroyed the universe? Oh, that's right, because it takes a while. Yeah, duh, asshole. I'm not arguing that my universe is going to survive. I'm arguing that I can explain how it's working now, shithead. Not how it will work in the future. But I would argue that I think theoretically it's looking pretty obvious to me that the universe is going to hang around a while.
Nobody, if it was to statistically come together in a close conglomerate, you understand that after a certain time period, probability says that it is...
Okay, so you heard him say, probability says. So after a certain time period, probability says it's going to fall apart. He hasn't talked one bit about how high the pressure is inside, hasn't talked about how high the pressure is outside. So he's made no conversation about any pressure equation here whatsoever, and he's saying it's statistically impossible for the clump to stay a clump. When it's just intuitive fact, you can see it right now. The Earth is a clump, and it's going to stay a fucking clump.
Again, going to dissipate into equilibrium.
Well, again, why? Why is it going to do that? If there's more pressure on the outside than there is on the inside, how the fuck exactly is it going to do that?
If you was to imagine two particular gas types.
Alright, so now he's using two particular gas types. It's too complicated to say polarization. Vertical and horizontal. I don't care. It's too complicated to say what I say.
Different polarity or whatever.
Or whatever. This is too complicated. Frisbee flying this way, frisbee flying that way. Too complicated. Whatever.
Colour. And they had rules of the emendum rules of interaction.
Yeah, well, they're going to be the physical realities rules of interaction. I mean, I think it would be a little bold if the human race decides to call them the emendum rules. I mean, that's kind of flattering. But guess what? They're the rules of the fucking universe, shithead. The universe has fundamental rules, jackass. Certain things that'll happen and certain things that won't happen because of those rules. It's a fact of a universe. Any theory of a universe would have to have rules, dumbass. You want to mock that idea? Go ahead. You're mocking your own self. You're embarrassing yourself, shithead. Mocking the idea that a universe would need rules to function? Yeah, you're insulting yourself with that crap. So he's doing this thing again. I mean, I'm not going to do it in color, but I'm just saying. So I've taken all of the crap of current physics, all the gluons, the pooons, the Higgs boson, the this, that thing, the blah, 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 all of this crap, and I've cut it down to fucking 3 rules. And he can't be obedient to them. He can't be fair to them. 3 stinking rules, and he can't treat them with any kind of fairness.
You all know this by now. He has 2 versions. I'm not going to bother changing colours for you. I expect you to know what this signifies.
Yeah, well, I expect you to know what it signifies, but it is kind of important. There's a right turn. Right turns are really, really dramatic. 90-degree change in direction isn't exactly just random anymore. Again, the box it can create. Let's just keep ignoring the box.
That there's no material change in this as a kinetic theory. Everything that I've said is still readily apparently true.
What have you said? What? You've said I can't have electrons in my theory. You've said that the electrons can't have properties. You've said the field energy has to hit each other. You've said this isn't about pressure. I don't have to say what the pressure of this box is at all. I don't have to say what the density of this material inside this container is. What have you said? You said nothing. You said nothing relevant to what I'm saying. You're not arguing my theory. You're arguing a shit of it. You took a shit and said, oh, look, this is Gary's theory. No, that isn't my theory. That's your shit.
Now, even if Mendham wants to...
I guess it'll speed this up. I can't yet. Too early.
Hypothesize that there be bodies in this kinetic gas.
Again, it's not a kinetic gas. The gas never hits each other. The gas molecules don't ever touch each other. The only thing they can touch are these things. These are the only things they interact with, are the things in the gas. So keep fucking around getting it wrong. Force does not interact with force. It's a rule. Maxwell knew it. Lots of people knew it.
If he wants to say that these bodies are made up of the very same things, obeying this very same law, as he's pointed out.
Okay, so very same means I can't say that the same thing's compressed. So I'm not allowed to say, you could have stuff in a small version or a big version, and you have to call. I can't call this a pen. I can't say this is pretty much the same as this. Yes, they have a few different properties, but it's the same stuff, it's just in a different form. I'm not allowed to say that. Yeah, it's the same stuff. It's, as I've stated, it's obviously different because it's matter and the field energy interacts with it. So it's different. It's been compressed or it's uncompressed. It doesn't matter which one you pick. The point is, it's been compressed, and the point is it's running in streams now. I mean, this is probably correct. I mean, I don't want to be held that I have to sit there and I have to do this now. I have to do abiogenesis now. Do it now. This is what I'm saying. The arrows inside the electron. What's happened to them is they've lost their length. Okay, so it's just the arrowheads, let's say, are stuck together. And they still have they can still pop off and pop on. So new ones can go on the ends, okay, but it can't and what it does is it turns as a whole entity. So when this end gets hit by something, it just goes right through them all. Chain reaction, chain reaction, chain reaction, chain reaction. And they all flip to the other side. So yes, it's a consistent piece of stuff, and the key difference is the red can never get in here. A red thing can never get inside of this stuff. It can only stay green. That's the rule. And it seems kind of obvious how red would never get in, because I'm saying red is going to constantly reflect. And it's only going to go out perpendicular off the ones going this way. So it hits the ones going this way, then it can hit those, and it gets reflected by them.
When one impact, he actually neglects to show the third option.
Oh, I'm supposed to show some other option that I don't think I need to include. Oh, how significant. I'm saying the third option is irrelevant.
Which is the straightforward bounce back.
I did do that. I mean, I have the pictures of it. So lie some more. I mean, right? You're just gonna. You people are just compulsive liars. I mean, the last drawing I showed the round circle with the arrows all the way around it, bouncing off. How did I not show that? I mean, fuck. Just lie some more. Lie some more. Just keep lying. Lie some more. Lie. Just keep lying. So all you got is lies.
Which presumably he holds to. I find it very unappealing that he negates all other angles.
Okay, I didn't negate anything. I'm saying it doesn't happen. It happens. Look, if something comes in this way, it's still going to be perpendicular. That's the rule. That's part of the geometry of the universe. It's dimensional. When you have a forward momentum or this momentum or that momentum, your perpendiculars are always perpendicular dimensions. That's the way the universe works, shithead. It's dimensional. You can't understand that? It's always dimensional from the perspective of the angle that the thing is moving at. It always does the gyroscope thing. Whatever forces affect me, my matter will turn it into one vector. And when I have that one vector, the other dimensions line up on the perpendicular. It's a rule of the universe, fuckhead. There's nothing else but perpendicular reactions, but they can be on any angle, and that angle means whatever dimension it's moving in. Whatever vector. It creates everything that's moving, creates its own perpendicular three-dimensional frame.
Not that it makes much difference, but the fact that he insists that that these so-called kinetic.
No, I insist that you can turn this any way you want to. So you can turn it any way you want to. I don't care, but it always has to be perpendicular because number one, it fits Maxwell's equations, you dumbass. That's the way it works. I didn't make the rules of the evidence, shithead. But it is obvious that that's what happens. That's what happens when electrons move. They perpendicularly release the force, you stupid cunt. And it just happens to be that that's incredibly conducive to the creation of trapping force.
Bodies can only interact at the 90-degree system.
Right, so it's too many rules for you. Wow, so 3 rules, too many. Too many rules. Nope, can't do it. Can't do wacky universe. It has 3 rules. Too many fuck that. That's too crazy. 3 rules? Oh, fuck that.
It is so artificial. It's artificial that he hopes he gets the perpendicular electric fields or magnetic fields.
I don't hope. The point, God damn. Okay, so yes, I should develop a theory of unification of forces by not paying any attention to how the forces actually behave. Oh, okay. That would be really clever, wouldn't it?
This system. Well, it's so artificial that it's not plausible.
Okay, so you just don't think it's plausible that there's 2 kinds of interactions. Head-on interactions and perpendicular interactions. You don't think that's plausible, that that's how the universe works. That just sounds too wacky. But you will accept Heisenberg, and you will accept Huygens, and you will accept dark energy, and you will accept dark matter, but you can't possibly accept that the universe works by head-on collisions and perpendicular collisions. I think this is enough. Yeah, there's no point. No point.